The transmission came at exactly 0300 hours Universal Time. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the HSS Retribution, her eyes fixed on the holographic display that flickered with the face of an alien creature she had never seen before. The being had scales like burnished copper, eyes that glowed with a sick yellow light, and a crown of twisted metal sitting upon its elongated skull. Behind it, a throne room stretched into darkness, filled with shadows that moved like living things. "I am Zarvarth the Eternal," the creature spoke. Its voice translated through the ship's systems into a cold, mechanical tone. "Ruler of the Dominion of 1,000 Suns, your species has been judged. Your worlds have been measured. Your existence has been found offensive to the natural order of the galaxy." Elena did not flinch. She had faced pirates, rebels, and rogue eye systems. She had watched her first command burn in the atmosphere of a dying world. Fear was something she had learned to pack away in a small box inside her chest, locked tight where it could not reach her hands or her voice. "Is that so?" she replied, her tone flat. The Tsar's eyes narrowed. He was not accustomed to such responses. For 3,000 years, his word had been law across 17 star systems. Species had knelt before his image. Entire civilizations had surrendered at the mere mention of his armada. This human female, standing on the bridge of a single warship, looked at him as though he were an insect buzzing near her meal. "In 7 of your rotations," the Tsar continued, "my fleet will arrive at your home system. We will begin with your outer colonies. We will reduce them to ash. Then we will move inward, world by world, until nothing remains of humanity but memories. And even those we will erase." The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent. Every officer present had heard the declaration. Every heart beat a little faster, but no one spoke. They all looked to their admiral, waiting. Elena turned to her communications officer. "Send that recording to Fleet Command. Priority Alpha. Then get me a direct line to Admiral Chun, Admiral Okonkwo, and Admiral Petrov. We have work to do." 3 days later, the response came from Earth. Not from politicians arguing in council chambers. Not from diplomats seeking peaceful solutions. The response came from the Imperial fleet itself, the combined naval forces of the Terran Empire. 147 capital ships, 300 cruisers, 800 destroyers and frigates, 42 carriers, each holding 500 strike craft. And at the center of it all, the pride of human engineering, the HSS Judgment, a dreadnought so massive it had its own gravitational field. Admiral Vasquez was given command of the defensive line at the edge of the Sol system. Her orders were simple. Hold the line. Buy time. Let the enemy come to them. Make them pay for every kilometer of space they tried to take. But Elena had different ideas. She gathered her captains in the war room of the Retribution. 37 commanding officers, each one a veteran of humanity's expansion across the stars. They had fought in the colony wars. They had suppressed the machine uprising. They had hunted down the slavers of the Orion Syndicate. These were not soldiers who waited for death to come to them. "The Tsar expects us to cower," Elena said, her voice carrying across the room. "He expects us to huddle around our homeworld like frightened children. He has conquered 100 species this way. He announces his coming, watches them panic, watches them tear themselves apart with fear, and then he arrives to collect the pieces." She pressed a button on the central console. A star map appeared, showing the approaching Dominion fleet. 12,000 vessels, arranged in perfect formation, moving through space like a swarm of metal locusts. "We are not going to wait," she continued. "We are going to meet them at the Kepler Passage, 3 days before they expect us to engage. We are going to hit them while they are still in transit formation. And we are going to show the Tsar what happens when you threaten humanity." The captains exchanged glances. This was not the cautious strategy they had expected. This was aggression. This was risk. This was exactly what they wanted. The Imperial fleet moved out within 6 hours. Engines burned hot as ships pushed themselves to maximum speed. Crew members prepared for battle, checking weapons, running simulations, writing messages to loved ones that might never be read. The mood was not one of despair. It was determination. Every man and woman in that fleet had grown up hearing stories of human resilience. They had been taught that humanity never surrendered, never retreated, never accepted annihilation as an option. Now they would prove it. The Kepler Passage was a narrow corridor of stable space between two unstable nebulae. Any fleet traveling from the Dominion's territory toward Sol had to pass through it. The Tsar's admirals had calculated that no enemy would dare to engage them in such a confined space. They were wrong. The human fleet arrived first. They spread out across the passage, arranging themselves in a formation that Elena had designed herself. She called it the Iron Embrace. Heavy ships at the center, drawing fire. Fast ships on the flanks, ready to strike. Carriers at the rear, launching wave after wave of fighters. And hidden among the asteroid fields at the edges of the passage, stealth destroyers carrying nuclear-tipped torpedoes. The Dominion fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel exactly on schedule. For a moment, their sensors struggled to process what they were seeing. The humans were supposed to be cowering at Earth. The humans were supposed to be paralyzed with fear. Instead, the humans were here, weapons armed, shields raised, waiting. The first shot came from the HSS Retribution. Elena gave the order herself, her voice steady. A beam of concentrated plasma crossed the void and struck the lead Dominion cruiser directly in its engine section. The ship exploded, scattering debris across the passage. And then chaos erupted. The human fleet moved with a coordination that the Dominion had never encountered. Every ship knew its role. Every captain trusted their admiral. When Elena ordered a flanking maneuver, it happened within seconds. When she called for a tactical withdrawal to draw the enemy into a trap, her captains executed it perfectly. The Dominion ships, accustomed to fighting terrified prey, found themselves facing predators. Fighters swarmed around the massive Dominion battleships, targeting weapon systems and sensor arrays. Destroyers darted between the enemy lines, launching torpedoes at point-blank range before disappearing back into the chaos. The dreadnought HSS Judgment waded into the center of the battle, its main guns firing continuously, each shot turning an enemy vessel into expanding clouds of metal and fire. The Tsar watched the battle from his throne room, light years away. He watched through the eyes of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, a vessel that had never known defeat. He watched as human ships tore through his formations. He watched as his admirals sent panic messages, begging for reinforcements that did not exist. He watched as the impossible became real. "How is this happening?" he demanded of his advisors. "They are primitives. They have been traveling the stars for less than 500 years. We have ruled for millennia." His advisors had no answers. They only had fear. The battle raged for 18 hours. The humans lost ships, good ships with good crews. The HSS Normandy went down with all hands after drawing fire away from 3 carriers. The SS Defiance rammed a Dominion dreadnought when its weapons failed, destroying both vessels in a flash of nuclear fire. The HSS Hope held at choke point alone for 40 minutes while damaged ships retreated behind her, and her captain's last words were a promise that they would be remembered. But for every human ship that fell, 10 Dominion vessels were destroyed. The enemy fleet, so confident in its superiority, began to crumble. Ships broke formation, trying to flee. Their commanders, never trained to handle defeat, made desperate decisions that only accelerated their destruction. And through it all, the human fleet pressed forward, refusing to give their enemy a moment to recover. When the Tsar's flagship finally entered the battle, Elena was waiting. The Eternal Dominion was enormous, a city-sized vessel bristling with weapons that could crack planets. But it was also old. Its design had not changed in centuries, because no enemy had ever forced the Dominion to innovate. The humans had no such luxury. They had been fighting and adapting since they first left Earth. Their ships were newer, faster, and equipped with weapons that the Dominion had never seen. The Retribution led the assault on the flagship. Elena commanded from the front, her ship taking hits that would have destroyed lesser vessels. Her shields failed. Her hull breached in 3 places. Her crew fought fires in sealed compartments and kept fighting. And when she finally got within range of the Eternal Dominion's bridge, she gave the order. Fire everything. The Retribution's main guns, rail cannons, and missile batteries all fired at once. The concentrated strike punched through the flagship's shields and armor, tearing into its command section. Secondary explosions rippled across the vessel as power systems overloaded. And then, in a flash that was visible across the entire battle space, the Eternal Dominion died. The Czar died with it. His last moments were spent watching human soldiers breach his throne room, their weapons raised, their faces hidden behind combat helmets. He tried to speak, to offer surrender, to bargain for his life. But the humans did not want to negotiate. They had received his message. They had heard his threat. And now they were delivering their response. The battle ended 3 hours later. Of the 12,000 Dominion ships that had entered the Kepler Passage, fewer than 800 escaped. The rest were destroyed, captured, or drifting powerless in the void. The human fleet had lost nearly a third of its strength, but they had won. They had done what no other species had ever accomplished. They had defeated the Dominion in open battle. Admiral Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Retribution as repair crews worked around her. She was exhausted. Her uniform was stained with coolant and blood that might have been her own. But she was alive, and her fleet was victorious. A communication came through from Earth. The face of the Terran Emperor appeared on screen, a man who had watched the battle unfold from billions of kilometers away. He looked at Elena with something like awe. "Admiral," he said, "the Czar ordered our annihilation." Elena nodded slowly. "Yes, Your Majesty." And the Imperial fleet ordered his. The transmission ended. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Tomorrow there would be memorials for the fallen, negotiations with the surviving Dominion worlds, and 1,000 new challenges to face. But tonight humanity had proven something to the galaxy. They were not prey. They were not victims. They were not a species that could be threatened into submission. They were humanity, and they would never go quietly into the dark.